Hello my dear sewing friends, in this video I would love to share with you a really clean, neat and easy way to install a separating zipper in a jacket that has a hood. This particular method is really great because it doesn't require a lining, it doesn't require a facing, and I will show you two options for the bottom and two options for the top of the jacket, so that way you will be all covered. We are also going to be working with two different fabrics, one that doesn't stretch at all and the other one is a really nice fluffy knit. As always, I will show you all the steps and explain what I do and why I do it, so that way you can achieve a great result as well. So without any further ado, let's get started. Now for this first jacket, my separating zipper is a little bit shorter than the entire length of the center front opening. That extra bit on the bottom is the hem, which is going to be folded up to the wrong side of the garment. The first step for me though is going to be to interface the opening where the zipper is going to be installed, so that way I can add a little bit of stability to it. Regardless of which interfacing I use, I usually like to keep the width of it to about 1 inch or less, so that way once the zipper is complete, it doesn't peek through. I don't always do it in every case, but if in doubt, I think it's better to add interfacing than not. In loose and fluffy knits like this one, it really helps to stabilize them and prevent stretching out. I also went ahead and finished the raw edge of the hem simply on a serger, since this is a knit and I want to preserve the elasticity of the fabric. Now let's talk about the hoods. One hood will be fully lined and the other one is going to be with a cut-on facing, which is really convenient because it simply folds to the inside of the hood. If you do have a hood pattern and you would like to make the same all-in-one facing or a cut-on facing, here's a quick reminder how to do it. So let's say I want my facing to be about 1 inch. So this is perfect. This will be just enough. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to fold this piece of paper onto itself at that blue line, and I will measure 1 inch all the way. Make sure that on the bottom here where the neckline is, you copy that exactly because it's going to be very important once the facing is folded in. Now once you open it up, there we go, your all-in-one facing. Next, let's go ahead and grab our zipper. My bottom hem is going to be about 1.5 inches, so I'm going to place here a little marker. Now I'm going to open the zipper. Right now, it's facing up. I want to flip it right side facing the right side of the fabric. I want to place the bottom right where I have placed my marker, and then align the rest of the zipper with the edge of the center front. And this is what I have right now. Please note that here is the stopper for the top of the zipper. So if I fold this out of the way, you can see that there's plenty of seam allowance. Now I'm going to grab my hand sew needle and thread and I'm going to baste the zipper from the bottom all the way to the top. Now I know that it might seem a little bit daunting doing this extra step of hand basting, but I promise you from my own personal experience, it's better to invest extra 5 minutes, because this actually goes really quickly, than hope for some luck and then spend 30 minutes or an hour ripping out the stitches. Now I'm going to take this marker, take the hem, fold it over like so, creating a little sandwich, and baste this part by hand as well. Once you're done with one side, you're going to repeat all of the same steps to the other side as well. Once both of the sides are done, what I like to do is to flip out these corners, then zip up the zipper and double check that everything is nice and neat. And in this case, I also want to make sure that I have successfully pattern matched both center front details. After that, now I'm going to stitch it down with a straight stitch on a sewing machine. Lots of different zipper tapes oftentimes have little lines over here that you can use as a guide. Prior to sewing, make sure that you switch your sewing machine to a zipper foot. Now I will start with the back stitch at the very top. Now you might worry about using straight stitches on a knit fabric, but in this case we did use interfacing to stabilize this part, plus the zipper tape doesn't stretch at all, so these straight stitches are going to be nice and secure and they aren't going anywhere. Once you meet the stopper, go ahead, lift up your presser foot and wiggle the stopper out of the way. Once done, continue stitching. Once you get to the bottom, you will be stitching through more layers, so keep that in mind. This is what I have once done. Now I want to open this back up and start removing the basting stitches that I did with a hand sewn needle and thread. After that, we're going to top stitch the zipper in place, so that way this little part doesn't flop around and we secure all of the raw edges on the inside. To do that, I'm going to pin my zipper from the right side of the fabric, and here I'm going to feel with my fingers, making sure that I pin right on the edge of the zipper tape. This is going to serve me as a guide where to stitch. I'm using the same zipper foot as before and the same straight stitch. So now from the right side of the fabric, starting with the back stitch, we're going to top stitch all the way from top to bottom. Now in the past, when I first started sewing, I did struggle with really neat top stitching. In those cases, I would skip it, but instead I would hand baste the zipper tape to the inside of the garment with invisible hand sewn stitches. Now on the right side you see a line of top stitching. On the knit though, stitches do sink in, so you can't really see it that well, and it's also very fluffy. But on the wrong side, you can see that the zipper tape is now attached and doesn't flop around. Once both sides have been top stitched, it is time to finish the hem. You can do that on a sewing machine, but in my case, I don't want the hem to be visible on the right side of the fabric. So I will go ahead, fold this up just like it is right now, and I'm going to complete it with hand sewing stitches. If you are doing this on a sewing machine, first of all, go ahead, pin everything in place, and then either from the right or the wrong side of the fabric, depending on what stitch and what setting you're using, you're going to attach the hem to the main body of the project, starting at the zipper, stitching all the way around, and ending at the zipper on the other side. If you're working with knits, you can do this with a zigzag stitch, twin needle, triple stretch stitch, or like me, doing it by hand. My hem is finally done, so now let's move on to the neckline. Here I have marked the center back with this black pin. I'm going to take the hood and align the center back seam of the hood with this pin. Then I'm going to continue pinning the hood to the neckline all the way to the zipper. Remember that my hood has a facing cut together with the hood, so it is going to be a little bit longer. Now I'm going to take that little bit of extra that's extending past the zipper, and just like on the bottom, we're going to fold it over like so, and then again pin it. I'm going to repeat all the same steps on the other side as well. I am actually going to baste it first, and after that, sew this all together. Before I start, I'm going to snip the tails of the zipper tape. Since this is a knit, I'm going to be completing the seam on a serger. Here's an extra tip. If you are working with a really fluffy and really stretchy knit, turn up your differential feed to avoid those stretched out seams. Also, whether you're using a serger or a sewing machine, make sure that you avoid going over the zipper teeth. Otherwise, you risk not only breaking the needle, but also throwing off the timing of your serger or a sewing machine and damaging it. In my case, there are no zipper teeth in the way, so it's all good. Once this is done, all we have to do, tuck in all of these little threads and then turn the little corners, just like so. Now I'm going to turn the entire facing to the wrong side of the hood, and I'm going to finish it by hand just like I did on the hem. You can of course opt to finish that part of the hood on the sewing machine as well. But now that that is done, let's go ahead and take a look at the final result. We have a really neat bottom, we have a really neat top. If you would like to finish the neckline with the twill tape and hide that seam, I do have a tutorial on how to do that. I will leave that for you in the description of this video. But other than that, this is done and ready to go. Now let's take a look at how to use this technique with a fully lined hood and a different option on the bottom. The bottom of this jacket is also a little bit longer to account for that hem that is going to be folded in, just like in the first option. The fabric doesn't stretch, and my first step will be to finish the raw edge on the bottom. For that, I'm going to grab a piece of bias tape and place it right sides facing with the main body of the project. Then I'm going to sew it. Once the fabric is attached, I'm going to flip it, then fold it over the raw edge and stitch in a ditch. I like using stitch in a ditch in this case because it provides no visible stitching on the right side, but you don't have to. You can simply stitch on the edge of the blue fabric. This is what it's going to look like once the stitch in the ditch is done. Now I'm going to trim the fabric a little bit from the wrong side, about half of it. After that, it is time to fold the hem by the necessary amount to the wrong side of the fabric and stitch it down with a straight stitch. As you have noticed, here we're going to complete the hem first and then attach the zipper, so it's the reverse of what we did in the first option. After the hem allowance is completed, it is time to move on to the zipper. And here, all of the steps are going to be exactly the same as in the first option. The only difference is that now we're going to align the bottom of the zipper with the very bottom of the jacket. After that, I'm going to baste it in place, stitch it down with a sewing machine. Before top stitching though, I will go ahead and grade the seam allowances to reduce a little bit of bulk. And after that, of course, top stitch. After finishing the top stitching, this is what you're going to have. Let me show you a couple of close-ups of the bottom so that way you can see how it looks. Everything is nice and neat and tucked away. Now let's talk about the hood for this little jacket. It is fully lined, so this is the lining piece, this is the main piece. On the main piece, I'm going to sew the curve of the hood as is. On the lining piece, I'm going to leave quite a bit of space unsewn, so that way I can turn everything out and I can have plenty of space to do so. Once the curves are sewn, we're going to connect them. So I will take my main pattern piece, open this up like so. I will take my lining pattern piece and place it right sides together, aligning at this little seam. Now I'm going to pin all the way down on one side and all the way down on the other side. Once done, now I'm going to sew where we have pinned. To align the seams here in a very clean manner, go ahead and nest the seams. That way you can get a really nice clean result like this one. Now push the lining, which is the smaller piece, inside of the hood and align it at the center back seam, and this is what you're going to have. Now my lining and my outer fabric is the same fabric, but yours doesn't have to be. And here we're also going to give it a really good press with the seam allowance pointing towards the inside of the hood. Now it is time to attach the hood. So this is the center back of my garment, and this is the center back of the hood of the main pattern piece. We're going to place them together, align, and pin. Next, we're going to align the rest of the neckline with the rest of the hood. We're only pinning one layer of the hood, which is the main layer, the outer one. Here, the edge of the zipper should meet the edge of the hood. So here's the fold of the hood, here's the edge of the zipper, and they should match. At this point, it is really useful to baste it in so that way you're not dealing with a ton of pins. Now what I'm going to do is, I will take the hood, I will open this up, and I will place the entire garment inside of the hood, and I will bring it all the way back to the neckline. Now I'm going to align the center back seam of the hood and the garment with the center back seam of the lining and pin them together. From here, I'm going to align the rest of the neckline and pin it together as well. At the zipper, we're wrapping the lining and the facing of the hood exactly the same way as we did in the first example. The only difference is that the hood this time is fully lined. Once I have pinned everything, it is now time to sew it. I usually give this seam one row of straight stitches and then an additional row of a zigzag stitch on the very edge. Once you're done, don't forget to remove the basting stitches. And after that, the last thing for us to do is to flip everything right side out through the opening that we left in the lining of the hood. As the very final step, all we have to do is to close up the opening in the lining of the hood with hand sewing stitches or on a sewing machine. Now let's take a look at the final result. Here we also have a really neat bottom, really neat wrong side of the zipper, but at the neckline all of the seam allowances are tucked away due to the fully lined hood. And there you have it, two neatly installed separating zippers. I hope you enjoyed. I have more detailed tutorials on my channel, but if you'd like to see how I made this shirt, then click on the video right over here. I'll see you in the next video, and until next time, happy, thoughtful sewing. Bye!